Welcome to Heat Checks and Hail Marys. This is Mike Kegley, and this is going to be an interesting week, folks. At the end of the episode, we will have on a guest. Ant Wright, you may be familiar with him, obviously, former Michigan basketball player, has a YouTube channel and has his Twitter feed at It's Ant Wright, ITS ANT WRIGHT. Give him a follow on both of those. He'll be on a bit later to talk about what an outsider thinks of Illinois basketball. Let's get over to what we saw this week. We saw the SEC only has one team left in the college football playoffs. They're down to a Final Four, and the only team there is Texas, which has only been an SEC team for a year. And to be real frank, their presence in the Final Four is largely due to a textbook targeting call being ignored in the waning moments of their overtime win against Arizona State. Now, to be clear, I don't really like the targeting rule, but I find it baffling that such a rule can be ignored so blatantly. We also saw the Fighting Illini win the Citrus Bowl as Brett Bielema becomes the enemy of South Carolinian mental health. The meltdown for this game was of epic proportions. And you know what? I can kind of understand it. South Carolina and Illinois have very similar histories. Teams that are trying to break through, have tried to break through, and have never been able to break through in their respective conferences. It's sad that only one team could win. As a guy who favors the Illini, I was at least happy it was my team. And we also saw a top 25 matchup in Big Ten basketball where number 22 Illini destroyed the number 9 Oregon Ducks in record-setting fashion. So let's take a deeper dive into a few subjects. Heat check number 1. Illini fans were in an incredibly satisfying position this past week. They watched an Illini Bowl victory, which if you go back into the record books is almost a rare event in and of itself because the Illini aren't in bowls that often to start with. And then that was followed by seeing an Illini basketball team destroy a top 10 opponent by a record 32 points on the road. That feat has never been accomplished before to a top 10 ranked team. Could this have been the greatest week ever for Illini sports fans? Well, we have to look at all the years that Illinois won a New Year's Day Bowl, which the Citrus Bowl for most years is a New Year's Day Bowl. And when you go back and you do the research, Illinois makes these things a little bit simple because they won Rose Bowls in 1946, 1951, and 1963. They also won Citrus Bowls in 1989 and 2024. There are a couple losses as well in the Rose Bowl, such as the 1983 season and the 2007 season. When it comes to winning New Year's Day Bowls, it gets really quite a short list of when they've won. And so now we need to take a look at each of those years and try to see what might qualify as a greatest week for Illini football and basketball fans. Now, in 1946, Rose Bowl victory, the men's basketball team lost to Wisconsin on New Year's Day, 1947. You got to win and a loss same day. That's not going to qualify as a greatest. In 1951, the Illini men's basketball team won versus Marquette and Minnesota, sandwiching the Rose Bowl. Now, Minnesota was around 15-7 that year. Marquette was 12-14. Nice wins, but greatest? I don't think so. 1963, the Illini men's basketball team won over Notre Dame and Michigan State before and after the Rose Bowl. Notre Dame ended up 10-14. Michigan State finished 14-10. Again, nice victories, and you can beat Notre Dame in any sport. You're never going to complain. But this isn't going to qualify as a greatest week. Now, 1989, the Illini men's basketball team won against number 15, Memphis State, and Wisconsin. Now, those are two good victories. Wisconsin wasn't quite the program they were going to be. And, of course, Memphis State was ranked in the top 25. We're getting closer, but no cigar. Now you go to 2024, the Illini's men's basketball team destroyed Chicago State. Okay, they're currently a winless team. And then they went out on the road at Oregon and beat the Ducks, who were ranked number 9, 109-77. 32-point win on the road, following up a Citrus Bowl victory for a team that most people expected to win 4 to 6 games. That qualifies as the greatest week for Illini fans. At least it does in my book. So, Illini fans, make sure you appreciate it. We don't know what's going to happen when they go on the road. It's the Big Ten, and it's a young team. So you don't know, and you can't guarantee anything, but this team is getting better, and that was an incredible week for Illini fans. Hail Mary number 1. Was 2024 the greatest Illini football season? Well, I'm going to lead up front that this question is impossible to answer, and I haven't fully decided myself where I land. But everyone has the potential for a different answer depending on how old you are and what you've experienced and how those years went. Now, Rose Bowl winning years were exceptional when you look at Illini football. Illini being ranked number 5 in 1946, number 3 in 1951, and number 3 in 1963. Illinois also finished number 10 in 1989. And, of course, they end up that same position in 1983. This year, that has yet to be determined, but I doubt that the Illini can move up quite that far in the rankings. I'm not Lauren Tate, so I can't remember every one of those seasons in my mind's eye. And, of course, if you go back to pre-modern times, you have other years that might be qualified as the greatest. But I do think there is something about the media and the excitement of the big bowl game on New Year's Day driving some of this decision making. When I look at it, there are 2 incredible teams that are the 2 that were the most enjoyable in my lifetime. The first was the 1983 Rose Bowl team. They had an incredible year that began with a loss and ended with a loss. They lost to Missouri, and then they lost in a deflating Rose Bowl to UCLA to end the season. But in between, it was marvelous. They won 10 games, including home victories over number 4 Iowa, number 6 Ohio State, and number 8 Michigan. Now, as a junior in high school, I attended all the home games that season, and it was truly a miraculous experience. That would probably be number 1, but this year's Illini team was also incredible to watch. They were selected roughly number 13 in the 18-team Big Ten Conference. Not number 13 in the nation, number 13 in the conference. With paper-thin depth at defensive line and linebacker, the team was expected to fight to make it to 6-6. But somehow this team, under Brett Bielema, went 5-1 in one-score games. The offensive line that mid-year people wondered what was wrong with them really began peaking at the end of the season. And the defensive line morphed from a roster area of concern to a roster area of strength. The team peaked at the exact right time at the end of the season. So this team ended up going 9-3 and then getting into the Citrus Bowl and beating a much favored South Carolina team. I love both seasons. But with the last memory of Brett Bielema's 2024 team being a Citrus Bowl victory and the additional bonus of him living inside the head of every South Carolina fan and their coaching staff, that may end up outweighing the incredible 1983 season, which no matter how you cut it, ended up with a very rough Rose Bowl. The enduring final memory of a win versus the final memory of the loss may push the 2024 Illini over the top in my book. But there's more seasons like this one coming to Champaign-Urbana soon. And with Luke Altmaier and a cast of dozens returning, along with some additional NIL dollars to spend, next year could be even better. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm expecting the Illini to win 10 or 11 games in the regular season. And with 11 games, the Illini would make it to their first CFP appearance. We'll see if that happens, but this Illini team is set up to succeed next season. Heat check number 2. 3 big 2025 Illini predictions. Well, I managed to spoil one of my 3 predictions for the Illini in 2025, but here they are in a little bit of detail. The Illini men's basketball team will at least make it back to the Elite Eight with a shot at the Final Four or even a possible national title. Now, admittedly, in a single elimination tournament, so much depends upon the matchups. For example, last year, the only way the Illini weren't going to make it to the Final Four is if they drew either UConn or Purdue before the Final Four. And we all know UConn stopped the Illini in the Elite Eight. So the matchups didn't work the way of the Illini. But as I see this team, they will return to the Elite Eight this season, and they may be able to do more. They're still a young team, and they're still learning, and there's going to be hiccups, but expect them to be peaking at tournament time. My second Illini prediction is the Illini men's golf team will finally break through to win the national title in golf this season. No coach has a better resume than Mike Small, and if you listen to him talk, you understand why he is nothing short of a great coach. The word great is thrown around too often in today's world. It's not when you put it in front of Coach Mike Small. And in 2025, I think he adds the only achievement that has eluded him to his impressive list of coaching accomplishments. This will be the year the Illini break through and get that national title in golf. And my third one, which you are already aware of, is the Illini football team will win either 10 or 11 games in the regular season in 2025. Now, this isn't an easy thing to say, and those who know me know that I generally end up on the conservative side of most of my predictions for Illinois sports. But the Big Ten is going to get tougher. There's going to be more competition to try to be at the top. But Brett Bielema has built this team by using established players and getting them to retain their services instead of going out into the transfer portal. I think that approach will help, and increased NIL dollars allows him to strategically target key positions where the Illini need help. And he is extremely good, along with his coaching staff, at both identifying talent that works within the system that he uses and developing players to be successful within that system. I am very bullish on the Illini. If they win 10 games next year, the CFP will at least have to look at them. If they win 11 games next year, I think the Illini are in, and they will be in the tournament. And I'll say it here first, thanks to Josh Whitman and the work he has done as athletic director at University of Illinois, they need to start breaking out the T-shirts. The 20s belong to the Illini. Those of you who are old enough to understand, that's a tip of the hat back to Neil Stoner and the 80s belong to the Illini T-shirts that a lot of us grew up with. Hail Mary number 2. Did Tennessee and Oregon belong in the CFP? Watching SEC fans melt down after each round of disappointing SEC results in the CFP has really been a gift to the nation's college football fans. SEC logic was dealt crushing blows by Illinois defeating South Carolina and a quarterback-less Michigan beating. These 2 games destroyed claims that a 3-loss SEC team should be treated differently because they play in the SEC. At the same time, other fans, probably more tongue-in-cheek, have been ripping at the SEC, saying Tennessee was not deserving to be in the CFP because they were blown out by Ohio State. The fact is Tennessee was a really good team. They just ran into a buzzsaw. How do I know that? Well, we found out the same thing is true for the number one Oregon Ducks, who had displayed no weaknesses during the regular season or in their championship game for the Big Ten title against Penn State. Look, folks, it's not about the team that loses. Regardless of the margin, teams get blown out in the CFP, teams get blown out in the NFL playoffs, teams get blown out in the NCAA tournament. Single game elimination allows those things to happen. It's about the teams that beat them. In this case, all the hullabaloo around the Tennessee Volunteers, that was about the Ohio State Buckeyes finally playing like the $20 million team they are. Their 2024 wake-up call came right before the Volunteer game. That was a problem for the Volunteers, not a problem with the Volunteers. If you're assuming teams don't belong in the CFP solely upon their conference affiliation, that's a you problem. That's not their problem. Hail Mary number 3. Bad losses don't mean as much as we thought they meant. Georgia lost to a Notre Dame team that has rebounded fully from being upset by the Northern Illinois Huskies. That horrible loss has been shown to be unimportant in terms of CFP performance. Many in the media, including myself, called the Northern Illinois loss the worst in the CFP field. Most likely we were right. But this has also been proven that the result meant nothing outside of it being trivia. Meaningless trivia, but interesting trivia. Keeping a prospective team out of the CFP playoffs for one bad loss, especially if it's that team's only loss, seems to be a foolish concept, especially now that Notre Dame has beat the SEC champion. Having the worst loss in the CFP on the Irish resume has made no difference as they have rolled through the playoffs. So it's time to look at those losses, measure what happened, and move on, because a loss that happened months ago does not determine the fate of a team today. Hail Mary number 4. Quarterbacks do mean a lot. Now, Florida State fans are still smarting from not making the CFP in 2023 due to the loss of their starting quarterback, Jordan Travis, because of injury. Now, Georgia played without starting quarterback Carson Beck due to injury and was beaten in a slow and methodical fashion by Notre Dame. Should prospective CFP teams not get into the expanded 12-team field if their starting quarterback is injured? I can't say that for sure. It's probably a team-by-team decision. So you could say maybe or maybe not. But I will say one thing. Expectations for a CFP team that is led by a backup quarterback shouldn't be very high. Just ask the Georgia Bulldogs. Hail Mary number 5, CFP predictions. Here are my predictions for the next 2 matchups. On January 9th, number 6 Penn State plays number 7 Notre Dame. They do that in the Capital One Orange Bowl. On the next night, on the 10th, number 5 Texas plays number 8 Ohio State at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic in Arlington. My prediction is Penn State will slip past Notre Dame in a game that I believe will be a classic defensive struggle to the very end. I just think Penn State has a little bit more speed on their defense and more athleticism in their defensive line, and that small margin will be enough to win the game by the narrowest of scores. Ohio State, meanwhile, will beat Texas, but I think they're going to have to survive an early Longhorn onslaught. And then the Buckeyes will recover, and I think they'll win going away by the end. If Texas doesn't start off fast, it could get ugly. Just ask Tennessee and Oregon. And as promised earlier in the podcast, I said we would get a little visit from Ant Wright, and people who are out there on the basketball part of the Twitterverse and YouTube know a lot about his film breakdowns. Ant, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, not a problem, man. I appreciate
So
it.
you played at Michigan out there on the court 07 to 10, and you also have obviously made kind of an industry of putting together analysis of what's going on the basketball court. Where can people find your content if they enjoy what they're hearing today and they want to find more?
Yeah, I mean, it's Ant Wright on Twitter, ITSANTWRIGHT. And then Ant Wright pretty much everywhere. It's Ant Wright everywhere, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. I do try to engage as much as possible, so you can always pop on there and ask me questions or ask me about a film breakdown or anything like that. I'll be down.
Yeah, I think I'll put out a plug out there because he puts out some really good videos, and he really is succinct and makes good points in 2 to 3 minutes, which is the total antithesis of me. And I would encourage people, if you don't follow him and you're watching this podcast, just like he said, ITS Ant WRIGHT on Twitter, and you can obviously get his YouTube channel as well, TikTok, etc. But I would encourage you to give him a follow depending on what social media you like to use.
I'll say this too. You have to give a warning. Like, I don't care about feelings. I say what I want to say, and just know that there will be times where I piss you off.
That's sports. As long as we all understand, you walk away with a smile on your face. Because if we have the ability to argue about sports, that's a first world problem we like to have.
Absolutely.
At Illini Guys, we look a lot very myopically at Illini from the inside out. What has Brad Underwood, from the outside looking in, what type of reputation does Brad Underwood have, and what's the perception of the Illinois basketball program right now?
Well, I'll say this. When he first came in, I was like, okay, I get it. I like it. I like his tenacity. I like his attitude towards things, but he can't play like this in the Big Ten. That was going back to his, what was that team he was with in Texas? The purple team?
Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah, Stephen F. Austin. I keep wanting to say St. Thomas because they look the same, but I knew that wasn't it. With Stephen F. Austin and Oklahoma State played a certain type of basketball that at that time just wouldn't blend well with the Big Ten. But he did try to come in and try to play that way, and just didn't work out because the Big Ten, every team they really, really valued possessions. So the way that he wanted to play, he wanted to rush teams, make them play fast, turn them over, get the game going like this. That's not Big Ten basketball, right? At that time, there was like John Beilein. You had slower Wisconsin teams, right? These teams who average like 8 or 9 turnovers a game, and they just methodically death by 1,000 cuts. They'll score 55 points, but they'll hold you to 42, right? So, I mean, we see it all the time, and he had to make an adjustment. And when he made the adjustment of recruiting a little bit different players, I think that started out with probably Kofi. When Kofi came in, because there was like a segment right there where if you didn't have a decent big, you just weren't going to survive the league. So he went out and got the biggest dude on the market, right? So Kofi comes in, changes everything. You have Ayo come in, do what he did in terms of being a Chicago kid, in terms of being someone who, improved, right? One thing about this conference is the development is very good in this league. And that's one thing that he's also done a very good job at, that development process. And then once Kofi left, he had to change again, right? And he found ways to win, right? And then he gets his ass kicked by Penn State playing that booty ball so much that he was like, I'm going to study this all summer and I'm going to play this next year.
Yeah.
And that's what he did last year. last year's Illinois team was a Final Four caliber team, in my opinion. Just out of luck, you got UConn in the Elite Eight, but I don't think Illinois is out of taking them against the field outside of UConn. But just sucks that was that matchup. His willingness to learn, his willingness to adjust and adapt, and his willingness to kind of do it his way as well. And not afraid to experiment and not afraid to make sure that his philosophy is surrounding his personnel, not vice versa. Right. And that's where I think a lot of coaches get missing. And that's where he's just gotten so much better and stronger. Oh man, I like his sets now. He used to run that elbow touch BS. I'm like, I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. Like, whatever, do your thing. And I hate that elbow hit series. It can work a little bit in like little quick hitters, but that was like the staple. I'm like, okay. Yeah. But like, man, against, Oregon, I'm seeing all these misdirections and screening the big for a pick and a flare, and he's running Spain. And I'm like, damn, this is sexy right now. He's just grown so much. I'm sorry I'm like ranting and rambling, but I always respect coaches who are able to know what their weaknesses are able to see where the game is going, and are able to see who's in their locker room, and they're going to make any change that they can to get the absolute most out of that team that year. And then you know what? Transfers come in, transfers leave, and you know what? Let's just figure it out in July again, and let's just go from there.
Of course, unlike a lot of major college coaches, Brad Underwood, he was down at the JUCO level, and he had to learn how to rebuild a total roster over the course of a year. What do you think about this Illini team? Obviously, they're not going to play at the level they played against Oregon. Teams have fantastic games. That's not their every night type of performance. Do you think this team has a ceiling similar to last year's team? And I guess I should say what I have been saying is I think this team may have a higher ceiling, but because of the lack of a Terrence Shannon Jr., that you're going to get the points no matter what you do, they may also have a lower floor than last year's team.
I could see that. Also for the main reason that last year's team didn't really have real point guard play, true point guard play. And that's what's the difference with this year is that they've got two, right? When Yaka Jonas comes out the game, Colin Boswell is free to take over and do what he does. He shares the ball, and he's strong getting downhill, and he gets to the line. These are things that, like, how many teams can say their backup point guard does what Colin does on both ends of the floor? Not many, right? So they do have an experience thing that they're still trying to get through. They did get the biggest thing of this year was Ivisic and KJ were ready from day one. I think that's what has allowed this team to reap the success that they've had so far this season. Is that Kasparas was ready from day one. Ivisic was ready for day one. I don't think Ben was ready for day one.
No.
Right? He wasn't ready day one. There's Jake Davis wasn't ready day one, and he had a big game, right? So it's just the fact that they were able to kind of hold serve for a while until some of these guys really got more comfortable. Ben being 6'8", 6'9", I'm watching his film, and I'm like, man, he could be a three-level demon. Put him in the post, how Ivisic can pass and shoot the ball. I don't mind Ivisic floating a little bit, right? Get Ben on the block and let him work a bit. Let him gain some confidence, see the shot go in, get fouled, and then make some foul shots. But I do see it from the standpoint of they don't have a Terrence Shannon who, man, if you get the ball to Terrence in the open court,
yep,
it's over. it's over. Unless you have three guys to kind of contain him, then he has to spray it out. It's going to be a foul or 2 points every single time. I mean, he's doing that now in the G League. He's doing the same thing where he's just getting out, finishing. And, not having that luxury kind of sucks. But I like the weapons on this team. I like how they're able to play on both ends. But like you said, I do like this. I like the ceiling a little bit higher on this team because just like last year, they have pros, but the big difference is they have true game managers that understand game flow and rhythm, who are going to be an extension of the head coach, knowing when to slow the game down, when to push, knowing what to call, how to run it, executing it well, right? Late shot clock, you're going to get a good shot, not some skipping around the horn garbage. You know what I mean? So you see sets are executed way better this year. Not, hey, Marcus, save us. Hey, Terrence, save us. It's never that. You're getting a decent shot almost every time down.
So when you look at this Big Ten, do you have it down to 2, 3, 4 teams that you think are going to end up being as the cream of the crop this year, or is it still unclear in your mind's eye?
There is definitely a top tier for me. I do want to put maybe five teams are in that top tier, and there's like 2 or 3 other teams that are like right there, real close to it. I think top tier teams are going to be Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, UCLA, and nobody's talking about them, but I think Wisconsin's in there too. Wisconsin has 3 losses. They're all to teams like the top 15 of the net, right? And, it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, look, that team is a good ball club. Good ball club. Got John Blackwell, John Tanji, who are playing very, very well right now. I mean, that's a good team. And I think UCLA just lost to Nebraska, but UCLA is going through some injuries right now. Didn't have their starting power forward, but in my opinion, they're the best defense in the league.
Any thoughts on how adapting to this NIL world, is going? I know we're seeing a ton of coaches just step aside. Tony Bennett, Larinaga.
Get out the way. Get your ass out the way. Get out. Move. If you don't want to buy into it, get out of here and let someone younger or let someone else older who wants that challenge. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
you want to bitch and complain and do all these things. Yo, go retire. You got enough bread. Go. See you later. And then all these coaches who did have it under the table are now struggling a little bit. Calipari, right? So, like, you're about to see a couple more coaches, I think, step down over the next couple years because the game is just passing them up. And when it comes to NIL and all these things, it's either you got the money or you don't. And you have to put people in the right positions to make sure that your program has the money. It's not just up to the head coach. Like, you have to have a department of like people who are calling boosters, and you got to have a general manager, and you got to do all these things from year to year to make sure, one, your money is right, and you got to retain the guys you want to retain on the team. That's the name of the game now. I'm tired of people complaining about it. It's not going to go back. Like, the door is open.
Yep.
The door is wide open now. It's either you're going to have to buy in or get out. Done.
I never understood, even as guys who were my age, like Brian Bosworth, it always seemed unfair to me to watch all those 44 jerseys across the United States when he was playing linebacker for the Sooners. Why couldn't he get $4 or $5 per jersey? I'm not talking about making him an infinitely wealthy guy, but if you would have done that for athletes and given them a little bit of a stipend based on all the people who were sitting in the stands, I don't know that it would have got to this, and it would have been fair for decades prior.
NCAA screwed up royally. I'm not at all surprised either. Like they saw this coming, and they're like, you know what? No, it's just got to hold serve. Like all you gotta do is do a little trickle, just a little bit. Slowly get to this point. But it's like we asked for a cup of water and they tore the whole dam down, right? That's how it felt. What they did. And I'm just like, what are y'all doing? Like y'all could have made these changes 10, 15 years ago where you were like able to slowly get into what it should look like. And you'll get to learn as you're going on. What are the people are going to have more agents, going to have this, going to have that. Well, let's set something up to make sure that these kids are getting ripped off. Let's set something up so these kids are getting lied to, right? Let's make sure that there's these types of contracts out there where if a kid's supposed to get 50K, it's getting 50K. Not, hey, I'll promise you 50 and you really got $300. Like that's an issue. Then like now you got kids sitting out. You got kids playing, this is like football, but playing 3 or 4 games and not getting their cut. And they're like, okay, I'm going to redshirt now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do think the other part that really interests me, especially like you're watching the CFP, there's still going to be obviously great teams. There's no doubt that's going to always happen. But I do think the guys who want to play are going to matriculate out of an Ohio State or an Alabama and go to another school because they want that opportunity. There's nothing wrong with their initial school, but only so many guys can be on the football field or the basketball court at once. And I think that's going to make for a better product for the general fan to watch, because I think you're going to see more teams that are capable of rising up and winning that big upset. What are your thoughts on that?
We see it like we've already seen that when it comes to football. We just had someone at Ohio State who played 7 games, had to start, transfer to Indiana. Like this is going to start happening where, players are like, man, I could leave now and I could play there next year. The transfer waiver is also like tying transfer waiver with NIL at the same time is like a nuclear bomb of just advantage, right? Because guys didn't transfer before who were getting all the reps. Why? Why transfer somewhere and then not play a year, right?
Yep, exactly.
Now you can use that as your trump card when you're in the transfer portal. If you're a receiver, hey, I just had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. You guys need a receiver. How much you want me for? Oh, $700K? Okay. Advance me 500 and, send me the paperwork. Done deal.
Yeah, it certainly has changed around college sports. Hey, one last time, Ant, thank you so much for coming on and give people a quick rundown where they can find you and what they can expect from you. I know that you're a great follow on X, and I think other people might like that as well.
Ant Wright, it's Ant Wright everywhere. Like I said, I love to engage. I love to talk. I will say some things that you don't agree with. I'll say some things that you do agree with. When it comes to my breakdowns, I try to avoid the fancy words that people use, and I try to explain things like as simple as possible with a little bit of intricacy just to make sure that you kind of understand things. But if you ever want me to break down a play, just send it to me, and I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. And yeah, I love the league. I love the Big Ten. I want to see them do well, and hopefully there's a national championship that comes out of the conference this year.
That would be great. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you so much for listening to Heat Checks and Hail Marys today, or watching, whichever you're doing right now. Thank you so much to Ant Wright for coming on today. We enjoy having a guest now and again when we have that opportunity, and we want to give you a different point of view on issues as well. We will be back next week, If you enjoyed this, give us a 5-star review. That is really big, particularly on the Apple format is huge. And of course, if you share this with your friends or on your social media, that would really help us. The only way to organically grow one of these shows is to have people who enjoy it recommend it to their friends who have similar interests. Until next week, folks, keep moving forward.